Good morning, dear students. We will begin with our lesson number 2 of our political science portion called the electoral process. The name itself tells us what we are going to deal with. Since we are aware that India is a democratic country, voting plays an important role. Let's learn further about the process of elections in India. I hope all of you all have your textbooks ready. Page number 75. Let's begin. Elections have played a major role in the working of India's democracy. Elections and representation are two very important processes in democracy. We know that since India is a democratic country and the power lies in the hands of the people, therefore, it is the right of every citizen of India to go for elections and to choose a representative. We know that India's representatives are selected through elections. Elections help to bring a change in power through peaceful means. You know that for a time you have a certain government that comes into power, and then after a certain time again there are re-elections that are taking place, and then there is a change in that power. But this change takes place in a very peaceful manner thanks to the voting system in India. Different political parties get an opportunity to rule. Policies of the government and the life of society also changes. We expect that the representatives we elect should be effective, honest, and trustworthy, and that they should respect the opinions of people. Of course, if we are going to choose someone to rule over us, okay, or to make decisions for us on our behalf, we have to make sure that the leaders that we choose should be trustworthy, should be efficient in the work that they have been selected to do, as well as to also be respectful towards the opinions of the people. The electoral process should also be free, fair, and reliable. Of course, India takes pride in the fact that we hold elections as free and fair. To ensure that the Constitution of India has made provisions for an independent election commission to administer the election process in India. India has made sure that since voting or the process of election is central to democracy in India, they have made sure that they have established a commission or the election commission to make sure that the election process in India goes smoothly. The Election Commission of India and the state level state election commissions conduct all important elections in our country. So you have the election commission, and under that you have the state level election commission. Okay, they are the ones who make sure that all the important elections in our country run smoothly. The entire process of elections, from declaring the date of the elections to the declaration of results, is carried out under the direction and control of the Election Commission. So, anything to do with elections, the Election Commission has the entire control or power over it. The election process is an inseparable component of a comprehensive democratic process. So, we cannot take out election or the process of elections from democracy. If we do that, the entire essence of democracy is lost. In this chapter, we will study and understand the structure, function, and role of the Election Commission. We will also discuss the reforms required to be made in the electoral process, starting with the Election Commission. In India, the Election Commission is central to the process of elections. Article 324 of the Indian Constitution has established this autonomous body, which consists of one chief election commissioner and two other commissioners. So, according to our Indian Constitution, Article number 324 gives full authority, autonomous meaning to have freedom to govern itself. Okay, so this particular commission has the right to make certain rules and regulations without the interference of the government. Of course, they have to work along with the law, but at the same time they have certain powers that they can make for themselves. Okay, and of course we need to have someone who is going to be a leader. So there is one chief election commissioner and two other commissioners that are also elected as assistants. Now, who elects the chief commissioners? You have the president. He is the one who appoints these commissioners. The chief election commissioner cannot be removed from his post easily or on account of any political reasons. So, his post is very important because he has all authority over the election process in India, and it is very difficult to take him out of his post. Okay, so he has full authority over the process of elections. This is necessary so as to preserve the independence of the election commission. So we know that it is an autonomous body, they can make and govern themselves. So therefore, to make sure that this continues, the chief election commissioner has all power over it. There is a separate provision made for expenses for the election commission. Now during elections we see that a lot of money is required, so a separate expense or a budget is made only for the election process to move smoothly. The election commission does not have a separate staff, they do not have people that are working under them. Okay, the government officers, teachers and other employees help in the election commission to execute the process of elections. I'm sure all of you all are aware of this. During election time we see a lot of government employers, we see a lot of teachers, okay, and other people, officers from government offices that are employed, or they are the ones who help out to make sure that the election process moves smoothly, or they help in the election commission. Now these are two boxes given to you in your textbook. What is representation? We've already spoken of representation, where we are given the freedom to choose our leaders, someone to represent us in the parliament or in the government. Modern democracy is a representative democracy. In a democracy, it is not possible to involve the entire population in the decision making. Because India is such a vast country with so many people, it is difficult to take each one's opinion individually. And therefore, we have representatives. This has resulted in the starting of the practice of electing some people on behalf of the entire population as representatives who would run the government. The representatives who form the government are expected to be responsible to the people and give preference to the welfare of the people. So, when we choose our leaders, we have to be smart in choosing our leaders, because they are the ones who are going to make certain rules and regulations, and they have to keep the welfare of the people in mind. Sukumar Sen was the first chief election commissioner after independence. I want all of you all to underline this. It can come as an objective type question. Okay. In 1921, Sen was selected for Indian civil services under the British rule. He was given the charge of the election commission, of the election commissioner after the election commission was established in 1950. Mr. Sen efficiently handed the responsibility of the election commission in extremely adverse conditions. Remember, this was the time when we were going to have elections, and the first time, so there was a lot of uncertainty, instability in the country, and therefore it was a huge task that he had to fulfill, and we know that he has done a really good job. Special campaign to create awareness among voters is run for voters registration, and the National Voters Day is celebrated for this purpose. I want all of you to find out when we celebrate National Voters Day. Now we come to what are the functions of the Election Commission. First one is preparing the voters list. We all know that you have to be a certain age in order to go and vote. So every Indian citizen who has completed 18 years of age has a right to vote. We've already done this in our previous lesson. To exercise the right to vote, the citizen's name must be in the voters list. If your name is not in the voters list, you cannot vote. Okay, so you have to make sure that as a citizen of India, your name has to be registered. It is the responsibility of the Election Commission to prepare the list of eligible voters, eligible where you are the right age to go and vote. Update the existing voters list and include the names of new voters. To update meaning if people have died during that year, okay, or if there are new people that have to be added. Obviously now everyone's aging, so if there was a child who was 17 and now when they go he's 18, so therefore he has to be added as a new voter. So upgradation of these lists is very important and it is the responsibility of the Election Commission. The Election Commission has the authority to issue identity cards to the voters. I'm sure all of you all know your parents might be having voters ID. All right, it is given by the Election Commission. Only they have the authority to issue these cards. Next is to decide the timetable and the program of elections. Now, obviously, we just cannot go anytime, no? So we need to know when exactly the election dates are, when is it coming up. Before that, there is a lot of hustle and bustle in the society talking about the forthcoming elections. The conduct of elections is entirely the responsibility of the Election Commission. The Election Commission decides when to conduct elections and in how many stages to hold elections in every state. So, in the end, all the power and all the responsibility lies in the hands of the Election Commission. They will tell us when the election is to be conducted and in how many stages. You don't have elections only on one day. Sometimes it is on 2 days, sometimes it is different in different wards. Okay, so they are the ones who create this timetable. Third, we come to scrutiny of the applications of candidates. Who is a candidate? The person who stands for election. Okay, so they have to fill out an application, and it is the responsibility of the Election Commission to go through these forms very minutely, very thoroughly. After the election dates are declared, every political party selects the candidates to contest elections. Some candidates contest the elections independently without the support of any political party. So, political parties select one amongst themselves to stand for elections, and sometimes you have individual people that stand without the help of any party as well. Candidates of political parties as well as independent candidates have to fill the application which include the information about their own self. So they have to give information about themselves. What is the name of the candidate, his education, and all other kinds of maybe personal information about that individual or the candidate, how old he is, for which party he is representing, as well as what are the agendas that he wants to portray for the people, any promises that he has made. All of these must be the various questions asked on those applications. The Election Commission scrutinizes to check thoroughly all the applications and allows the eligible candidates to contest the election. So, to make sure that the person can be of some use or think of the welfare of the people when he is standing for elections, he or she. Next function, give recognition to political parties. We have a multi-party system in our country. You all are aware. I've given you various political parties and their symbols. I'm sure most of you all already know and are aware of the major ones in India. So they all are existing together. So multi-party. New parties continue to be formed. Split in the parties results in the formation of new parties. So the Indian National Congress, which was established, has over time had many splits. Okay, and these people have made various other political parties. So this also creates new parties with new agendas. All political parties are required to be recognized by the Election Commission. If the Election Commission does not recognize that party, they cannot stand for elections. Election Commission also has a right to de-recognize any political party. What do you mean by de-recognize? If that particular political party may have been noticed to be involved in some criminal activity or maybe has misused their power, the Election Commission has the right to de-recognize them, to cancel them out from standing for elections. The Election Commission also allots election symbols to the political parties. These symbols have to be recognized and given by the Election Commission. No two parties can have the same symbol because it can be confusing for the people. Next function, to resolve any disputes relating to elections. The Election Commission has the responsibility of resolving any disputes that may arise regarding elections. Accordingly, to declare any candidate as disqualified or to conduct re-elections in a particular constituency is the responsibility of the Election Commission. So, any disputes, any conflicts that might arise while elections are on, before or after as well, it is the responsibility of the Election Commission to resolve them, to solve them in a peaceful manner. If any candidate again has been seen to be involved in any kind of criminal activity or misusing his power, they too can be disqualified from standing for elections, as well as they can take them out and have re-elections, okay, in any constituency. That is the responsibility of the Election Commission. So we see that the Election Commission has a lot of responsibilities, a lot of functions which they have to maintain, because India is a vast country with a vast number of people. So it becomes a great challenge, okay, for them to carry out the responsibility and to make sure that the election process in India goes on smoothly. Now, here I want, this is something for you all to think about, read it, and see which two conditions among the following is a violation of code of conduct. Code of conduct is how to behave during the elections, before and after the elections as well. Okay, the candidate distributes items of household goods. Now you know that when there are elections, you have candidates that come and asks for elections. They come to maybe your societies, they come to your houses. In rural areas, they go and make certain promises, but they have to maintain a code of conduct. They cannot bribe their voters into voting for them. They cannot use caste systems or religion as a way of getting more and more votes. So you need to read this and see what is an accepted code of conduct and what isn't. Okay. Shyam Sharan Negi from Himachal Pradesh was the first voter of India. Again, please underline, can be asked as an objective type question. He exercised his right to vote on the 25th of October 1951 in Lok Sabha elections. Something for you to remember. Okay, we now come to the process of elections. How does the election process go on smoothly? There have to be certain levels and stages which you have to, like steps, in order to move smoothly. The first one is establishment of constituencies. You have to make, now India is a vast country, so to make sure that the election process goes on smoothly, the country is divided into certain parts. These parts are constituencies. Finalizing a voters list, I've already told you, if your name is not on the voters list, you cannot be given the right to vote. So you have to make sure that your name is mentioned on the voters list. Next, nomination of candidates and scrutiny of their nomination forms. So we already know that when a candidate stands for elections, they have to fill out an application, a form, all right, and the election commission has to go through these forms and make sure that they are eligible, that they can stand for elections. Next, you have the campaigning. You might see a lot of people with cycles and rickshaws and trucks with big flexes of these candidates that are standing for elections. You'll see their symbols mentioned, and then you'll have people, recorded messages that are played for people to vote for this particular candidate. Okay, so that is a campaigning process. Then the actual day to vote, when it appears or when it comes, people are supposed to go and cast their vote for the correct representative. After the voting day, then the counting of votes to show which candidate has won with the majority of votes. After the counting, you have to declare the results of the voting or the elections. And lastly, resolution of disputes regarding elections. If in case this is, it has to be a step, because if in case there might have been some sort of misuse of power, or maybe there was a mistake in the counting of the votes, then there could be disputes and there could be conflicts which have to be resolved by the election commission. Next, we come to restructuring of the constituency. I've already told you what constituency means. A constituency is where a larger part, now we know that India is a vast country, and therefore, to make the election process smooth, okay, to have the process move smoothly, the entire country has been divided into certain parts. These parts are constituencies. The total number of members in the Lok Sabha are 543. Every member represents one constituency. Therefore, there are 543 constituencies of Lok Sabha. Creating constituencies is the responsibility of the Delimitation Commission of the Election Commission. So, amongst themselves, they have uh, a delimitation commission who is responsible of setting these boundaries for constituencies. Okay, so it is their responsibility, and the delimitation commission does not succumb to any pressure while restructuring the constituencies. What do you mean by to succumb? To bow down to negative forces or to authority. Okay, so they are the ones, even the government cannot interfere in these decisions that are being made by the delimitation commission. They are the ones who say that from this particular area to this particular area is one constituency. Together there are 543. Please underline that, also can come as a objective type question. Now, what is code of conduct? To ensure free and fair elections in India, the Election Commission has adopted several measures. The Code of Conduct is one of the measures adopted by the Election Commission. In the last few decades, the Election Commission has used its power to control malpractices during elections. Malpractices where people are doing wrong things in order to gain votes. The Code of Conduct explains the rules that are to be followed by the government, political parties, and voters before elections and during elections. So, before elections, also sometimes we get to hear about political parties bribing people or voters by either giving them money or food or household goods in order to gain more votes. This is malpractices that we hear of, and in order to make sure that the elections are held in a fair manner, these sort of malpractices have to be stopped. Therefore, the Election Commission has issued this code of conduct where there are certain rules that need to be followed, not only by the political parties, not only by the voters, but even by the government. Even the government cannot violate these rules. Due to the strict observance of the code of conduct in the last few elections, the common people or the voters have become confident. So, because we know that there are certain rules and regulations that avoid people from performing any malpractices before or during elections, the common man has had more confidence in the voting system in India. Now, because India is such a vast country with so many people, okay, it is a huge challenge for the Election Commission to maintain that, quality of election process in India. So they are going to face certain challenges. And what are the various challenges that the Election Commission faces in order to conduct free and fair elections? If we take into account the size of our country and the number of voters, conducting elections becomes a truly challenging task. The Election Commission has to work in accordance with the law while dealing with these challenges. Some of the challenges are mentioned below. The first one is misuse of money takes place to a great extent during elections. The Election Commission has to take several measures to stop such a misuse of money. Like I've told you, before elections, there are political parties that might bribe people by giving them money, okay, in order to get their votes. also use a lot of money to buy certain products or goods for the people that they distribute in these areas. So there is misuse of money that occurs, and it is a great challenge for the election commission. Many political parties give election tickets to candidates with criminal background. This results not only in the criminalization of politics, but the election commission also faces problems in ensuring that elections are conducted in free environment. So we know that political parties sometimes, when they elect their candidates, the candidate might have a a background, and in order to avoid people with a criminal background to stand for elections becomes a major challenge for the election commission. So while they are scrutinizing those forms and applications, they have to make sure that the candidate is not only eligible but also free from any criminal records. Okay, because it can lead to criminalization of politics. Crime can enter into politics, and in order, when crime enters politics, people are scared. Maybe this person who has a criminal record, if we don't vote for him or her, they might come and attack us. So with the fear of that, people might vote for them, or people might just not vote at all. Okay, so to make sure that the um, essence of democracy is not lost, the election commission has to make sure that people who have a criminal background are not supposed to stand for elections. Another major challenge is violence during elections. We also hear of these things happening after elections. We see two opposing parties getting into conflicts or getting into certain violent activities. The extent of violence has increased significantly during elections. Even during elections, if you notice, your parents might have told you, when they go for elections, as soon as you finish casting your vote, you're not supposed to stand around where the elections are supposed to be held. Okay, you cast your vote and you go back home. That's it. You're not supposed to be standing around, okay, because that can cause suspicion in the minds of people, and it can also lead to conflicts. All political parties should help the election commission to control this violence. Instead of creating violence, the political parties should help in order to avoid any such violence. Next is to retain a continuing influence on politics. Now, the Election Commission has a major challenge in order to keep control over political parties, because leaders give election tickets to their own relatives. We see this a lot. When the father was a political leader, he gives it to his son or daughter in order to carry on that legacy of his or hers. All right, so to make sure that there is no such thing as family monopoly in politics, because each one should be given the chance to stand for elections and to be in power in order to voice their opinion towards a better India. Okay, now there is this little box given to you on page number 78. Do you know? At the time of the first elections, preparing the voters' lists was a challenging task. As many people were illiterate, the special procedure of voting was used during election. 20 lakhs steel boxes were made for voting purposes. Election symbols were stuck on the boxes, and the voter was given a blank ballot paper which they were supposed to drop in the box having the election symbol of the party they wanted to vote for. So, to make it easier for the people, because at that time when the first elections were held, we see that majority of the people were illiterate. So, the only thing that they could remember was the symbol of that particular party they wanted to vote for. So, there would be boxes with the symbol on it, and then they would have to go and cast their vote by placing a blank slip into the boxes with the symbol that they wanted to vote for. This system ensured that even the illiterate people could vote. Next, we come to electoral reforms. What do you mean by the term reform? Change. So, what are the various changes that need to be added in order to make the electoral process more efficient, okay, or to work more smoothly? Elections is a continuous process. The future of democracy depends on elections. Electoral process becomes reliable if election process gets improved. Some reforms are given below. The first one is to increase participation of women in politics. The political parties should give 50% candidature to women candidates and try to ensure that they get elected. Now, we've already studied about feminist history, we've studied about how females were not treated equally before, but now over time we fought for our rights and we have been given the right to join politics. So, the first reform is to make sure that more women participants or more women candidates are joining political parties, and to give 50% candidature to women candidates, and not only to make them stand but to also see that they are elected. Okay, thankfully today we get to see so many women that are in politics and have also been elected by various people and voters because they see a efficient and capable leader or a representative. Second, political parties should not give candidature to candidates having criminal background. We've already spoken about this, because once a criminal enters into politics, the entire faith of the people is lost. They should strictly follow the decision given by the courts in this respect. Third, the government should take care of election expenses. The government has to make sure that there is set a certain budget for political parties to spend for their campaigns, to ensure that the parties will not make misuse of money, and mismanagement of money during elections can be stopped. We've spoken about misusing of money, yes or no, by bribing people. So in order to make sure that the elections are carried out in a fair and just manner without any malpractices, this misuse of money has to be stopped. Lastly, we come to Representation of the People's Act should be amended so that candidates having criminal background would not be able to participate in elections. So there is a People's Act, okay, where we are choosing our representatives. In this, there has to be an amendment made, a change made, where candidates having criminal background should not be given a chance to stand for elections. So these are the various reforms, various changes that need to be made in the electoral process. Journey from ballot boxes to EVM machines. The first election in independent India was held in 1951-52. This was the beginning of shaping of democracy through electoral politics. In the initial elections, ballot boxes were used for the purpose of voting. The use of EVM machines started from the decade of the 1990s. Many things could be achieved because of the voting machines. EVM is an electronic voting machine. Okay. If the voters do not want to vote for any candidate, they could choose an option of none of the above, that is NOTA, also known as NOTA. This option can be given only because of the voting machine. It has become easy for disabled people to vote. It reduces the cutting of trees for paper and thereby helped in the protection of the environment, because before, you remember, they used to have slips that were given to them and they had to go and place it in the box. With this, it is all electronically done and each vote is counted. It is also possible to have an early declaration of election results, because the machine counts the number of votes that have been cast by people for each candidate, so it becomes easier to declare the results and earlier as well. Now these are certain things that they've just given you facts that you need to understand in order to get a more clear view of what happens during elections or what is the voting process. So you know something about general elections, where Lok Sabha elections are held every 5 years. They are called as general elections. Midterm elections, if the elected government loses its majority before completing its term in the parliament, or if the parties of the coalition government is where you have a temporary alliance with another party, so you have like a friendship with another party, okay, if they also withdraw their support, it results in the loss of majority support for the government, and if no alternative government is possible, then elections are held before the completion of the term. They are called as mid-term elections because it has abruptly stopped in the middle. By elections, If an elected representative in Lok Sabha, Vidhan Sabha, or the local self government resigns, or due to his or her death, his seat becomes vacant, the election can be held for that vacant seat, and this is called as by elections. Just given for you to understand what these various terms mean. Next, we come to do you know? The Election Commission established an expert committee on the 8th of October 2010. It was decided to add a new facility, voter verified paper audit trial, also known as VVPAT, in EVM machines. All political parties supported this. Because of this facility, the voters can verify whether the vote cast is registered properly. The purpose of this important step is to stop malpractices in elections. If you notice, I've given you a small little picture of the EVM down. This machine, when you go and press against, the political party that you're going to vote for, okay, so you have their symbols that are mentioned, you have the name of the candidate, you have the name of the political party, and next to that you will have a button which you have to press. Okay, so once you press that button, your vote is cast and you can vote only once. Okay, so your vote will be counted only once. This process helps in the malpracticing or malpractices during elections. I'll try and put a small video for you to understand more about this VVPAT, uh, you know, new thing that they started with the machines. It'll be more useful for you to understand. All right. So with this class, we have studied about the electoral process in this lesson. In the next chapter in political science, we will study about political parties in India. I hope all of you all have understood the lesson, and I hope you all have no doubts. But if you all do, please feel free to mention them. And from your exercise behind your textbook, question number 1, 2, and 4. These three questions can be done in the textbook itself. Question number 3 and 5 have to be written in your classwork books. Okay, I'm repeating that again. 1, 2, and 4 in the textbook itself, and question number 3 and 5 to be done in your classwork books. Okay, with that class, we finish with this lesson. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.